أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. First and foremost, we give sincere thanks to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing of life and for all the ni'mah that He has bestowed on us. It's a great pleasure to be part of this important community of blessed brothers and sisters. May Allah accept our efforts. Our discussion for this particular program is on the fundamentals of Islamic finance, and I would like to humbly speak in English so that the message inshallah can go far and far away, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the opportunity for ourselves and for others to listen to the best out of it and put it in practice, and all the mistakes herein may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and guide us towards the right way. Coming back on the main topic of the fundamentals of Islamic finance. Now, the first question people might want to ask is why the name Islamic has been added to the term finance. Why the term Islamic has been added to the name or the noun finance. Why do we have to qualify a finance as Islamic? And what is the need of having Islamic finance or Islamic banking or Islamic economics or Islamic management or any related Islamic area of a particular conventional counterpart? Now, the question is answered this way. It's quite technical, but inshallah we'll do our best in our first session to give a general overview with regard to this particular technical question. Now, the first thing is we'll look at conventional finance. Conventional finance is based on profit maximization, as our economics professors will say. From the conventional economics, we know that the background or the moving engine of the conventional economics and conventional finance that we have today is based on profit maximization and use of resource at all costs to just profit, right? To how we can maximize our profit in a particular way or another. In such doing, among the things we do is management, investment, and movement of funds, and particularly movement of funds across the society from surpluses to those in need, and in such a way that we can benefit more and more from our capital. And this is the fundamental of finance, or let's say economics, from the conventional perspective. When we come to the Islamic finance or Islamic economics, we are doing the same thing, all about management of funds, investment, for instance, in financing. When you want to buy a house or you want to buy a car, you don't have the entire capital of doing so, or you want to own a particular property, or you want to gain profit or some addition on top of your money or on top of your capital. The same thing done in conventional, the same thing is done in Islamic, but this is where the difference comes in when it comes to Islamic finance or Islamic economics or any Islamic related area. We have to make profit just like the conventional. However, there are limits in all the things we have to do. We have there is a particular boundary within which one can make profits. Okay, and then the boundary is set clearly by the Sharia of Islam. I mean, the Sharia, or what we call the Islamic law, has objectives, or what we call the Maqasid al-Sharia. In the Maqasid al-Sharia, we have 5 main areas that needs to be protected. We have the Hifz al-Din, alright, the protection and preservation of the religion. Whatever we do in business that serves to protect our deen or our religion or our creed is very, very important. The second one is Hifz al-Nafs, preservation and protection of life. We deal with businesses in Islamic finance and economics so as to strengthen the bond of community, or to help the development of the humankind, not only Muslims and not only non-Muslims, but humankind. Because Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to mankind generally in the world. So when we do business in such a way that mankind will benefit and is going to protect and preserve livelihood of others, Muslims or non-Muslims alike. And then we have protection and preservation of wealth, Hifz al-Mal. And then the fourth one is the protection and preservation of the aql, or the intellect. Deal with businesses, or deal in businesses that will serve to protect and preserve our intellect. And this makes dealing in alcohol and all marijuana, cocaine, and all those things that when the human consumes is going to affect the intellect. And as we know, alcohol, as we call it, the Khaba'ith, is the mother of all death and the mother of all. Since once one is affected in the intellect, there is a high chance that is going to affect the person's being and in all other actions. Therefore, when we come to business, when we come to finance, when we come to economics, dealing in such businesses are prohibited. As we know, there are so many verses in a hadith in the Quran that talks about that. We will discuss that later on, inshallah. And then the fifth one is protection and preservation of the lineage of the family. And this is very, very important as well. That has to be considered in business, but is much more considered in other areas. This is where marriage is very, very important to prevent fornication and all other sinful acts that can serve to deter or serve to sever or destroy the family. Now, having considered these 5 main maqasid al-Sharia, Sharia here forms the background on which Islamic finance is based. And based on that, we do exactly like conventional finance. However, based on these 5 maqasid, there are other characteristics that serve to differentiate conventional finance or conventional banking and finance from the conventional that serves to differentiate the Islamic finance and banking from the conventional finance and banking. Top amongst one is the prohibition of riba, or predetermined interest in a business. Right? Riba can be riba can be categorized into 2. We have riba al-nasiyya and riba al-fadl. Riba al-nasiyya, riba al-fadl is talking about the riba, the interest that is due to a particular loan, or riba that is due to commodities. Sorry. Riba that is due to commodities, or riba that is due to an increment in terms of loan. And another one, we also call it riba al-Quran and riba Sunnah, which is just a technical terms, because one type of the riba was prohibited by a verse in the Quran, another one is prohibited by a verse in the hadith. We're going to discuss that in detail, inshallah, in our next program. Then another thing which is distinguishing feature between the Islamic economics and finance or banking and the conventional counterparts is gharar, uncertainty. Alright, gharar or uncertainty in business is forbidden, and in Islamic banking and finance and economics, all these are maintained and try as much as possible to minimize gharar or to get rid of it completely, because gharar also can lead to injustice. Now the third aspect which is forbidden in Islamic financial and banking transactions is what we call the maisir or gambling. Alright, gambling or maisir is also prohibited, and that's one thing which in the conventional counterpart they don't, but in Islamic banking and finance or economics this is completely forbidden. Alright, and then we have the inclusion or the provision or the introduction of zakah. Alright, zakah is not spoken about in any conventional finance or economics or banking, but when we come to the Islamic financial industry, we talk about zakah and how it can be incorporated into the Islamic financial industry. And then we also look at other charitable activities which are not included in the conventional counterparts. Now these characteristics, among others that I have mentioned, are the areas or the main characteristics or the distinguishing features that serves to differentiate Islamic finance, economics and banking from the conventional counterpart. Now having said that, inshallah in our next programs we're going to have the if Allah give us long life, we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us long life to continue with this course. Inshallah we're going to discuss in detail these characteristics, and from then we go into questions like if someone wants to go for financing of a house or financing of a car in a country like in the West or in other countries in the East, where you may not be able to have the necessary Islamic financial industry to help you in this kind of transaction, what are the things we're going to do? Inshallah we're going to discuss that in our next meeting. But before we go on, let me use some few minutes to speak about some of the philosophies of that is embedded in the conventional aspects of banking, finance, economics that are not acceptable in the Islamic banking or Islamic finance or Islamic economics. First and foremost, we know very well about the segregation between rationality and between religion in conventional studies. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the conventional economics that we study in schools or in finance or in management or on almost all these areas, there is segregation between what God has said and what rationality is saying. In those kind of segregation, we have this sacralization of politics, the consecration of power, which is to say, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden marijuana, has forbidden alcohol, has forbidden all other things that can serve to affect us in our intellect, in our wealth, in our life, in our deen, as well as our families, in the conventional counterpart, what they will say is power now is not in the hands of God, power now is in the hands of men, so men have to vote. And when we vote, for instance, in gay rights or other things, when we vote and the majority of the people agree that we have to deal into this riba, because riba is what the majority of people want. In the conventional counterpart, we tend to have our theory to follow our practice, so our practice is more important and then our theory comes later. Therefore we tend to go always to our constitution based on voting and based on utilitarianism, as we call it. Alright, maximum good given to the maximum number of people based on voting. When we vote, the majority carries the vote. So if the majority wants alcohol, majority wants gay rights, majority wants anything which the religion or religious facts have forbidden, once majority wants it. In the conventional counterpart, we tend to give that right to them. In other words, we say that from the conventional aspects of finance, economics, management, and just mention all these areas, we have what we call power given to mankind, and mankind is more wise to make their own decisions. This is called rationality. And once this happens, all the things we do, we follow what mankind wants. That is the rationality. Now coming back to Islam, in Islam at all times we have to have our behavior and our practice to follow our theory. The theory here is the Quran and the Sunnah, which forms as the background of the Sharia. So the Sharia, when we talk about finance, Islamic finance, the Sharia is the background. The Sharia is becoming the foundation. Whatever actions we do, even if the whole world should come and vote that they want riba because it's going to be profitable with all our calculations, it can never happen, because there is clear-cut injunction. So we will have to follow our interest within a confines of the Sharia. So in summary, we say that based on Islamic view of based on the Islamic view of finance or economics, or just mention any area regarding Islamic or regarding the Sharia, our practice must follow the theory. If there is contradiction, we have to go back and change our practice to suit our theory. In the conventional finance or conventional banking or conventional economics, we just mention all the conventional areas. In the first place, we say that there is no God. We use our rationality. So what happens is our constitution always has to change to follow our practice. In Islam is the opposite. Our practice has to follow our constitution or our theory, which is coming from the Sharia, which is from the Quran and the Sunnah. These are among the distinguishing features of not only Islamic finance but any other area like Islamic management, or let's say Islamic engineering. If any area that we have regarding Islam, this is what it is about. So as Muslims, we deal with business, we deal with finance, we deal with everything by pleasing God first, pleasing Allah first, and all our actions is towards seeking the pleasure of Allah or seeking the falah. If we need to seek the falah, then we need to do business, seek knowledge, do anything that we have to do, even if it's a medical doctor or a pharmacist, engineer, whatever we do, we place Allah first. And by pleasing Allah first, what it means is we have to go back to the Sharia and do what the Sharia says based on the Quran and the Sunnah. And I repeat here, based on the Quran and the Sunnah, nothing else, no more, no less. Quran and the Sunnah is the foundation of everything that we have to do. So we're coming back again to the Islamic finance, Islamic economics, Islamic banking, Islamic management, Islamic human resource. We place Allah first, and then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then we have to go back to the Quran and the Sunnah at all times to get how we can, whatever we do in our financing or banking should be in line with the Sharia. In the business, like I said, business area, we have to make it in line with Sharia by taking out things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden, like riba, like gharar, like maisir, and all other things which are forbidden. Inshallah, we're going to discuss them in detail in our future programs, inshallah. So this is what I have to share. In summary, for all that I have said here, is that there is difference between conventional economics, finance, and management or economics to the Islamic counterpart. And most of the distinguishing features is that in the Islamic point of view, we have to place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah first, which is to say the Quran and the Sunnah. And based on the Quran and the Sunnah, we tend to have our actions in economics or in finance has to follow the Quran and the Sunnah, which is the Sharia. In the conventional counterpart, is all based on rationality, and rationality is mostly all about maximization of profit. How I can increase how I can increase profit, and that's it. And Inshallah, in our next programs, we're going to highlight some of these things that are prohibited, and inshallah, we move on into the contracts or the alternatives in terms of contracts as compared to the conventional counterpart that we have, and then we move into financing, inshallah, and then we develop until we go to discuss about sukuk, alright, which is the bond or the Islamic perspective or Islamic Sharia compliance of the current conventional bond that we have. So this is the little we share here. Whatever it is in this which is good, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help myself and all of us to understand, and not only that, to put it into practice as well. And whatever is a mistake in whatever I have said, I seek the forgiveness of my brothers, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us all and guide us towards the right path. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.